When McCubbin found an unpublished photo of Buffalo Bill Cody, it became the star of the January 2000 issue of True West magazine, released under the tagline, "A New Era and New Owners for True West." Taken in the early 1870s, the image came with the caption, "A young Cody, eyes alive, almost daring the world." Calamity Jane, born Martha Canary, switched between dresses and everyday clothes. In the 1895 cabinet card made by Henry R. Locke and Charles Peterson in Deadwood, South Dakota, she appears as she became famous, in buckskin. The look became her trademark and cemented her persona in the imagination of the West. Before we keep going, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. That way, every new episode gets to you right on time and nothing on this journey slips by. Born in 1848, Myra Maybelle Shirley became famous as Belle Starr, an outlaw tied to the Youngers, and married the criminals Jim Reed and Sam Starr. In 1886, a cabinet card by the Roeder brothers in Fort Smith, Arkansas, shows her in profile next to U.S. Deputy Marshal Benjamin Tyner Hughes, a symbol of the Old West. Recorded around 1875 in Nebraska, the image is part of a cabinet card. The piece was produced and distributed by Taylor's Copying Company, based in St. Louis, Missouri. Decades later, the card got new life and notoriety when Jesse James's murder put it in the spotlight. In 1864, at 17, Jesse James began building his reputation as an outlaw in Missouri. With his brother Frank, he joined Confederate guerrillas and attacked Union troops in raids and ambushes whenever he saw an opening. His rise was fast and short. His story, full of constant risk, ended before he turned 35. Peter Bogardus, heir to a line of crack shots, steps in with a Remington Model 1888 firm in his hand. Another pistol rests at his waist, ready. His skill isn't an accident. It comes from home, passed down from his father, known as Captain Bogardus, whose fame shaped the son and keeps the family tradition alive. In an 1880s cabinet card titled, "The Real Cowboy Captured Alive," we see Cottonwood Charlie Nebo on the left, alongside Nicholas Janis, a French-American pioneer in the Nebraska Territory. The image connects bloodlines. Janis is believed to be a descendant, maybe even a brother, of Joseph Antoine. Among the most coveted items for fans of the Old West, from gunfighters to sheriffs, are original photos, signatures, and pieces with solid provenance. This carte de visite of Ben Thompson stands out because it brings all that together in a single object, connecting the collector directly to history. It's a chance to touch a real chapter of the past. In a photograph dated around 1865, we see Tiburcio Vasquez, a bandit of Hispanic origin. Over 2 decades, his name ran across the American Old West, tied to stagecoach attacks and a string of robberies that brought him fame, and left a trail of stories that still echo. John Burwell R., known as Texas Jack, broke out driving cattle along the Chisholm Trail. The fame there was just the start. After the long drives, he took a new and surprising path. He left ranch work and stepped into show business, where he expanded his own legend. In the arenas, he turned experience into popular entertainment. From early on, McCubbin was fascinated by historical photographs. The path picked up steam when he bought for $50 a print of Black Jack Ketchum. With persistence, he ended up getting the outlaw's original photo, boosting the weight and value of his collection. From then on, his curation found direction and scope. Before we keep going, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. That way, every new episode gets to you right on time and nothing on this journey slips by. Billy Brooks, once respected as a lawman, traded duty for challenges to order. He was a marshal in Newton, Kansas, where he earned a reputation for firmness. Later, he moved to Dodge City, a tense stage. There, his routine turned explosive. He got into several shootouts. The path that began alongside justice tilted toward confrontation. Ezra Allen Minor, better known as Bill Minor, lived an outlaw life that crossed borders. Before the fame, he racked up stints in U.S. prisons. He started with horse theft. Later, he moved on to stagecoach robberies, refining his methods and building a reputation in the underworld. Pat Garrett is usually remembered as the great lawman in New Mexico, famous for how the Billy the Kid case ended. But when you ask Hispanic residents who best symbolizes local justice, another name comes up: El Fuego Baca. This memory dispute exposes different views about heroes and authority. The most famous photo tied to Josie Earp, Wyatt's wife, probably isn't the real deal. The portrait of a woman in sheer silk became famous on the cover of Glenn Boyer's I Married Wyatt Earp, released in 1976, and for years shaped the public image attributed to her. Felix Tellez was taken from his family at 12, in the midst of clashes with the Apaches in the Arizona Territory. His fate seemed set for something else, but the story flipped. He grew up in the fire of conflict, proved himself a skilled fighter, and later joined the U.S. Army's Apache Scouts there. In 1885, photographer William Notman in Montreal shot a striking studio series, including portraits of Sitting Bull and Buffalo Bill Cody. At that very moment, Sitting Bull agreed to join Cody's show and set out on a 4-month tour with the famous Wild West show across Canada and the U.S. Texas, 1853. A century before the magazine's first issue, John King Fisher changed course several times. He started as a cowboy, landed in prison for horse theft, and after getting out, took on another face. He led an outlaw gang with a controversial goal, taking on Mexican bands along the border. On April 13, 1898, the path of Richard Little Dick West came to an end. After joining robberies with Bill Doolin's gang and trying to rob trains alongside Al Jennings' group, he was cornered near Guthrie in the Oklahoma Territory. A posse led by Deputy U.S. Marshals Bill Tillman and Heck Thomas brought him down. This photo, kept by Seth Bullock's family, shows the first sheriff of Deadwood in the Dakota Territory. In 1876, Bullock and Saul Starr opened a hardware store, changing the pace of the town swept up in the gold rush. His arrival lined up with August 2nd. Jack McCall murdered Wild Bill Hickok. This group scene, considered one of the most faithful records of cowboys in action, is a carte de visite photograph made around 1885. It was captured by Charles Baker and Eli Johnston, photographers working in Douglas, then in the Arizona Territory. Publicized and studied, it became a reference on life in the West. Before we keep going, hit subscribe and turn on the bell. That way, every new episode gets to you right on time and nothing on this journey slips by. The Santa Fe Trail, opened in 1821 by Missouri trader William Becknell, marked U.S. commerce and expansion. As the region's first international corridor, it linked New Mexico, then part of Mexico, to the American western frontier, opening routes for trade, the flow of ideas, and redefining maps and opportunities. One portrait stops us. In the image, we see the son of Mangus Coloradus, the Apache leader who took his father's name and command after him. The shot is by Frank Randall, around 1884. The scene brings us closer to a central figure in Native American history in the United States, remembered for the influence he held in the 19th century. Dan Thrapp, a specialist on the Apache Wars, researched and wrote the 1964 biography Al Sieber, Chief of Scouts. Born in Germany, Sieber played a crucial role in the conflict, leading scouts under General George Crook and leaving a decisive legacy in the West. Images of the California Gold Rush reveal a coveted chapter of the Old West. Among them, portraits of miners, studio shots too, stand out as windows into the period, showing routines, risks, and settings that shaped those journeys and the harsh conditions lived out on those frontiers. William Clark Quantrill left his mark on the U.S. Civil War by commanding Quantrill's raiders. Instead of open battles, he favored mobility, quick ambushes, calculated retreats, and nighttime actions. His strikes, aimed at Union positions, spread fear and exposed the fragility of enemy lines. In the 1870s, John Poe started ventures in Texas. He began as a buffalo hunter, a tough trade that demanded aim and endurance. Over time, he turned the practice into a mission. From the plains to the law, he moved up to the role of agent, and with courage and method, established himself as a recognized man of justice. Henry Starr, a real outlaw, reenacted his own story in the 1919 silent film A Debtor to the Law, recreating bank robberies. A member of the Starr clan and a distant relative of Sam, Belle Starr's husband, he was pardoned by Teddy Roosevelt after helping quell a prison riot by Crawford Cherokee Bill Goldsby. In 1882, the death of Johnny Ringo became a key piece of Arizona Territory history. The Tombstone gunman fell, and since then his end has fueled dispute. Wyatt Earp and buckskin Frank Leslie both claimed the shot. Was it suicide or a settling of scores? Versions overlap. The controversy persists and shapes the legend. Tom Horn crossed history wearing many hats. He was a scout and packer in the Apache War, showed talent as a roper, and worked for the Pinkerton Agency. Later, he got involved in the range wars in Wyoming, working as a detective and hired gun, which made him a controversial and famous figure. In 1887, Ned Christie was wrongly accused of killing a U.S. deputy marshal. Years later, in 1892, his flight ended in tragedy. A group killed him. Afterward, agents displayed his body tied to a door and posed for photos, turning violence into a trophy in front of Cherokee people. We see a carte de visite from 1878. Charles Baudry poses next to Manuela. At first glance, it's a regular portrait. On a closer look, bloodstains appear. They take us to Stinking Springs, December 23, 1880, when Sheriff Pat Garrett and his posse shot Baudry, an episode that sealed his fate. The figure in this photo, taken around 1850, is a bullwhacker, the person who kept the wagons moving, driving oxen with the crack of a whip. Between long journeys and hostile terrain, these drivers moved goods along vast routes, sustaining the economy and opening the way for new centers in trade. Between 1835 and 1885, 49 former Texas Rangers moved into the lucrative scalp trade in northern Mexico. With the government hiring private militias to respond to Apache and Comanche attacks, the scalp hunters emerged. They killed on commission and got paid based on the age and gender of their victims. We've reached the end of our video. Subscribe to our channel and leave a comment if you enjoyed the content. See you next time.